On July 20th, 1969, two astronauts were 400,000 kilometers from home, flying a computer that kept crashing, running out of fuel, heading toward a boulder field the size of a house, and Mission Control had no idea if they were about to watch the first moon landing in history or the first death broadcast live to 1 billion people. They had less than 2 minutes of fuel left, and the hardest part of the entire mission hadn't even started yet. At around 30,000 feet, as the Lunar Module Eagle began its final descent, an alarm started blaring in the cockpit. Then another. Program alarms, 1202, then 1201. Codes that neither Neil Armstrong nor Buzz Aldrin had ever seen trigger during simulation training. The onboard computer, with less processing power than a modern calculator, was being overloaded with data it hadn't been asked to prioritize. Nobody in the spacecraft knew, in that exact moment, whether this meant the guidance system was about to fail completely. Back in Houston, a 26-year-old engineer named Jack Garman had, weeks earlier, insisted on cataloging every possible alarm code the computer could throw, including ones considered too obscure to matter. That decision, made almost as an afterthought, became the reason Mission Control was able to say go instead of abort. This is exactly why Apollo 11 tends to get remembered as a triumph of engineering. But honestly, I think it was just as much a triumph of preparation. Garman's decision to catalog alarms nobody thought would matter is the kind of unglamorous work that never makes the highlight reel. But it's arguably the reason this story has a happy ending at all. Even with the alarms cleared, a second problem emerged, one far more dangerous, because no one back on Earth could do anything about it. The Eagle was coming down 4 miles off its intended target, heading directly toward a crater filled with boulders large enough to tear open the landing gear on impact. Armstrong made a decision that wasn't in any checklist. He took semi-manual control of the module, flying it himself, searching visually for a flatter landing zone while fuel reserves dropped toward a hard limit NASA had set before launch. Armstrong's heart rate during this stretch reportedly spiked to around 150 beats per minute, according to biomedical telemetry from the mission. That's not the heart rate of a man calmly flying a spacecraft. That's the heart rate of someone who understood, second by second, exactly how close this was. What's easy to miss here is that Armstrong wasn't just reacting under pressure. He was making an active judgment call that overrode the mission's own automated plan in real time, with no way to consult anyone on the ground before committing to it. In Houston, a flight controller named Bob Carlton was reading off fuel levels in real time, and the numbers were dropping toward a mandatory abort threshold. At 60 seconds of fuel remaining, protocol required an automatic abort call, a call that would have ended the landing attempt entirely, with no guarantee of a safe return. Carlton called out, 60 seconds, then 30. The room reportedly went almost silent, waiting. The actual recorded audio from Mission Control is almost unnervingly calm. Flat voices, reading numbers, while everyone in that room understood they might be witnessing the disaster unfold live. At 17 seconds of estimated fuel remaining, by some analyses less than that, Armstrong found a clear patch of ground and set the Eagle down. What strikes me about this stretch is the discipline it must have taken for Carlton to keep his voice level while calling out numbers that were functionally a countdown to potential catastrophe. That kind of composure isn't an accident. It's the result of training for a scenario everyone hoped they'd never actually need. Armstrong's voice came through. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Mission Control physically exhaled. Engineers who'd been rigid with tension for the better part of 10 minutes visibly relaxed, according to footage from that room. It would still be another 6.5 hours before Armstrong stepped onto the surface. But the hardest, least publicly understood part of the entire mission was already over. Most people know the line, "one small step for man." Almost nobody remembers that the landing itself came within roughly 20 seconds of an automatic abort. The most dangerous 8 minutes of the entire Apollo program happened before Armstrong's foot ever touched the surface. Looking back at it now, what's remarkable isn't just that they landed safely. It's how many independent decisions, made by different people under pressure, all had to be correct for history to unfold the way we remember it. One wrong call at any of these stages, and this becomes a completely different story. Everything people usually associate with Apollo 11, the flag, the footprint, the famous words, all of it happened only because two men and a room full of engineers made the right call, again and again, in a descent that came far closer to disaster than most retellings ever admit.
What I keep coming back to with this story is how much of it comes down to preparation nobody thought they'd need. An engineer cataloging alarm codes weeks in advance. A pilot trained well enough to fly manually under pressure most of us can't imagine. History remembers the giant leap. It rarely remembers the 8 minutes right before it, when the whole thing almost didn't happen at all.